In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers claw at the sky and the thrum of life reverberates through the streets, Michael Bennett stood alone. Amidst the flurry of activity, he was a solitary figure, his tailored suit a shield against the chaos that swirled around him. But beneath the veneer of success lay a man haunted by loneliness, a silent specter that trailed him like a shadow. As he strode through the bustling sidewalks, the weight of his solitude bore down upon him. Faces blurred past, lost in the anonymity of the crowd, each one a reminder of the distance that separated him from the world. For Michael, life had become a series of transactions, a relentless pursuit of success that left little room for genuine connection. Yet despite his best efforts to bury it beneath layers of ambition, the ache of emptiness persisted. It gnawed at him like a hungry beast, demanding to be fed. And so he sought refuge in the rhythm of the city, the ceaseless pulse that drowned out the whispers of discontent. But even amidst the cacophony of urban life, Michael could not escape the hollow ache in his chest. It followed him like a relentless shadow, a constant reminder of the void that lingered within. It was on one such day, as he navigated the labyrinthine streets of Manhattan, that fate intervened in the form of a chance encounter. Amidst the hustle and bustle of the city, he found himself drawn to a small theater tucked away in a quiet corner of the West Village. Intrigued by the promise of escape, Michael stepped inside, the scent of old wood and musty velvet enveloping him like a warm embrace. The theater was dimly lit, the air heavy with anticipation as the audience settled into their seats. And there, bathed in the soft glow of the stage lights, he saw her, Emily Reed. She was a vision of ethereal beauty, her presence commanding the attention of all who beheld her. As she graced the stage with her presence, Michael found himself captivated by her performance, drawn into a world of make-believe and illusion. In that moment, he felt something stir within him, a spark of something long dormant reigniting with newfound intensity. It was a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying, a glimpse of something he had long denied himself. And as the final curtain fell and the applause thundered through the theater, Michael knew that his life would never be the same, for in Emily Reed, he had found something he had long thought lost: hope. The air in Michael Bennett's luxurious penthouse apartment crackled with tension as he paced back and forth, his mind a whirlwind of anxiety and desperation. The news of his wife's unexpected visit had landed like a thunderbolt, shattering the fragile illusion of control he had meticulously constructed around his life. His wife was a part of his life that felt forced and sometimes very artificial, something he did not feel comfortable with. With each step, the plush carpet beneath his feet seemed to whisper accusations, reminding him of his failures and shortcomings. How could he face her, he wondered, when his carefully crafted facade threatened to crumble at any moment? His wife, a woman of impeccable taste and discernment, would surely see through the charade he had so painstakingly maintained. But Michael was not one to succumb to defeat easily. No, he was a man of action, a problem solver. And so, as the city lights twinkled outside his window, he formulated a plan, a desperate, audacious plan born out of necessity and fueled by desperation. He reached for his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed a number he never thought he would have cause to call. The line rang once, twice before a voice, soft, hesitant, answered on the other end. Hello? It was her, Emily Reed, the struggling actress whose name had been whispered in his ear by a mutual acquaintance. Michael got to see her only once in a small, old local theater, but that was enough to get it clear in his mind. "Ms. Reed," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. "It's Michael Bennett. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance." There was a pause on the other end of the line, a pregnant silence that seemed to stretch on for an eternity. "Mr. Bennett," she replied at last, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Michael hesitated, his mind racing as he searched for the right words to convey the gravity of his situation. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and urgent. "I find myself in need of your services, Ms. Reed," he said, his heart pounding in his chest. "I require someone to accompany me during my wife's visit to New York, a woman of grace and poise, someone who can convincingly play the role of my devoted spouse." There was another pause, shorter this time, as Emily processed his words. When she spoke again, her voice was tinged with disbelief. "You want me to pretend to be your wife?" she asked, her tone incredulous. Michael swallowed hard, the weight of his request bearing down on him like a leaden weight. "Yes," he replied simply. "I want you to pretend to be my wife." For a moment there was silence on the other end of the line, a deafening silence that seemed to echo through the room. And then, just when Michael feared she would refuse him, Emily spoke, her voice firm and resolute. "When do we start?" she asked, her words a quiet promise of collaboration and complicity. And with that, the die was cast. The stage was set for a dangerous game of deception and betrayal, with Michael and Emily as its unwitting players. But as the city slept, unaware of the drama unfolding within its midst, they made a silent vow to see it through. Together, Michael and Emily found themselves stepping into the role of husband and wife with a mixture of trepidation and determination. Their first official outing together as a couple took them to a high-end charity gala, where the elite of New York society mingled beneath the glittering chandeliers of a grand ballroom. Dressed to the nines in a tailored tuxedo, Michael cut a striking figure as he escorted Emily, resplendent in a shimmering gown that hugged her curves in all the right places. As they entered the gala, the air crackled with anticipation, and heads turned to watch the enigmatic couple glide across the marble floors. Michael's arm was firm around Emily's waist, offering both support and reassurance as they navigated the sea of curious gazes. Emily couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves in her stomach as she scanned the room, her heart pounding in her chest. This was far from the dingy audition rooms and small-time theaters she was accustomed to. Here, amidst the glitz and glamour of high society, she felt like a fish out of water, acutely aware of her humble origins. But then Michael leaned in close, his voice a low, soothing murmur in her ear. "You look stunning," he whispered, his breath warm against her skin. And in that moment, all of Emily's doubts melted away, replaced by a rush of gratitude for the man beside her. With Michael by her side, Emily found herself standing a little taller, her chin lifted with newfound confidence. She smiled warmly at the curious onlookers, channeling the grace and poise of a seasoned socialite as she engaged in polite small talk and exchanged air kisses with the other guests. Meanwhile, Michael played his part to perfection, effortlessly charming his way through conversations and effortlessly deflecting any probing questions about his mysterious wife. His smile was practiced and polished, his demeanor cool and collected as he maintained the facade of the perfect husband. But beneath the surface, both Michael and Emily were acutely aware of the growing intimacy between them, a simmering tension that crackled like electricity whenever their eyes met across the crowded room. There was a palpable chemistry between them, undeniable and intoxicating, drawing them closer with each passing moment. As the night wore on, Michael and Emily found themselves drawn into a whirlwind of music and laughter, swept along by the rhythm of the evening. They danced together beneath the soft glow of the ballroom lights, lost in the magic of the moment as the world faded away around them. And as they moved together in perfect harmony, their hearts beating as one, Michael and Emily knew that their charade was no longer just a game. It was the beginning of something real, something raw and beautiful that neither of them could deny. But little did they know, their newfound happiness would soon be put to the ultimate test, as the shadows of their past loomed ominously on the horizon, threatening to tear them apart once and for all. As the sun dipped below the jagged skyline of New York City, casting a warm glow over the bustling streets below, Michael Bennett found himself ensconced in the opulent surroundings of an upscale restaurant, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Across the table sat Emily Reed, her eyes alight with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation, her delicate features illuminated by the soft flicker of candlelight. The clink of silverware and murmur of conversation filled the air. But for Michael, the world had narrowed down to the woman sitting opposite him. Despite their arrangement being born out of necessity, he couldn't shake the undeniable chemistry that crackled between them. It was a dangerous dance they were engaged in, one that threatened to consume them both if they weren't careful. As they exchanged polite small talk, Michael couldn't help but steal glances at Emily, her radiant smile sending a jolt of electricity through him. He marveled at how effortlessly she slipped into the role of his wife, her charm and grace belying the turmoil that surely churned beneath the surface. But beneath the facade of their newfound intimacy lurked a shadow of guilt and uncertainty. Michael wrestled with his conscience, torn between the duty he owed to his estranged wife and the undeniable pull he felt towards Emily. He knew he was playing a dangerous game, one that could have devastating consequences if they were discovered. Across the table, Emily fidgeted with the stem of her wine glass, her gaze darting nervously around the room. Despite her outward poise, he could sense the apprehension that gnawed at her from within. She, too, grappled with the moral implications of their charade, the weight of their deception threatening to crush her spirit. As the evening wore on, the tension between them mounted, each stolen glance and fleeting touch igniting a fire that burned ever brighter. In the dimly lit restaurant, surrounded by the whispers of their shared secrets, they danced on the razor's edge of desire, teetering on the brink of something neither of them could fully comprehend. But as the night drew to a close and they emerged into the cool embrace of the city streets, Michael and Emily found themselves standing at a crossroads. Their hearts pulled them inexorably towards each other, but the specter of their deception loomed large, casting a shadow over their burgeoning romance. With a silent exchange of glances, they made a silent pact to forge ahead, to brave the storm that threatened to engulf them. For in each other's arms they found solace and sanctuary, a fleeting respite from the chaos of their tangled lives. For in each other's arms they found solace and sanctuary, a fleeting respite from the chaos of their tangled lives. And as they disappeared into the labyrinth of the city, hand in hand, they knew that their journey was far from over. The next day, Michael's heart raced with anxiety as he stood outside the luxurious penthouse apartment he shared with his wife, waiting for her imminent arrival. Every passing car, every echoing footstep sent a shiver down his spine, reminding him of the precariousness of his situation. Inside, Emily paced nervously, her hands trembling as she rehearsed her lines, trying to steel herself for the inevitable confrontation. She had known from the start that their charade couldn't last forever, but now that the moment of truth was upon them, she felt a wave of panic wash over her, threatening to drown her in uncertainty. At last, the sound of a car pulling up outside shattered the tense silence, sending Michael and Emily's heartbeats into overdrive. With a deep breath, Michael opened the door to greet his wife, plastering on the smile that felt as brittle as glass. Mrs. Bennet swept into the apartment with all the elegance and poise befitting a woman of her status, her sharp eyes taking in every detail with a keenness that made Michael's stomach churn. He could feel her gaze boring into him, probing for any sign of weakness or deceit, and he fought to maintain his composure, to keep the facade from crumbling under the weight of her scrutiny. "Michael, darling," Mrs. Bennet purred, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. "You didn't tell me we were having guests." Michael's heart sank as he watched his wife's eyes flicker over Emily, taking in her disheveled appearance and the tension that crackled in the air between them. He knew that their carefully constructed lie was on the verge of unraveling, that any misstep could spell disaster for them both. But Emily surprised him with her poise, her grace under pressure. Stepping forward with a confidence that belied her inner turmoil, she extended her hand to Mrs. Bennet, flashing a dazzling smile that masked the fear in her eyes. "Emily Reed," she said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Mrs. Bennet's smile froze on her lips, her eyes narrowing with suspicion as she studied Emily's face. For a moment the room seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the edge of a precipice before Mrs. Bennet's mask of civility slipped back into place, her smile widening into a predatory grin. "The pleasure is all mine, I'm sure," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But forgive me if I find it hard to believe that my husband would invite a complete stranger into our home without so much as a word of warning." Michael's heart hammered in his chest as he searched for a way to diffuse the tension, to salvage what little remained of their charade. But before he could speak, Emily stepped in, her voice ringing out with the confidence that took him by surprise. "Actually, Mrs. Bennet," she said, her gaze steady as she met the older woman's eyes, "Michael and I have been seeing each other for quite some time now. He just hasn't had the courage to tell you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, reverberating through the room with a force that left Michael reeling. He watched in stunned silence as Mrs. Bennet's face contorted with rage, her hands curling into fists at her sides as she turned her fury on him. "How dare you!" she spat, her voice low and venomous. "After everything I've done for you, after all the sacrifices I've made, you have the audacity to betray me like this?" Michael opened his mouth to protest, to explain, but the words caught in his throat, choked off by the weight of his guilt. He knew that he had brought this upon himself, that he had let his fear and cowardice drive him to betray the woman he had once promised to love and cherish above all others. But as he watched Emily stand her ground, her eyes ablaze with defiance, he felt a flicker of hope stir within him, a glimmer of possibility amidst the chaos. Perhaps, he thought, it wasn't too late to make things right, to find redemption in the arms of the woman who had unwittingly stolen his heart. Michael, looking sweetly at his wife, says, "I know everything you have done for me, and I will always thank you, but you must recognize that we have always lived a false life, both of our families being upper class. They forced us into this marriage as if it were a business agreement, but deep down I have never been happy. I believe it's time for us both to have the opportunity to find happiness. That's why it's best for us to separate and end this." With a newfound determination, Michael took Emily's hand in his, squeezing it tightly as he met her gaze with a silent promise. Whatever may come, he vowed, they would face it together, bound by the unbreakable bond of their forbidden love. Mrs. Bennet, with a saddened face but an understanding of the situation, remains silent for a moment as she looks at Michael and Emily. "I hope you are very happy together, because I don't believe we ever had the opportunity to be. This world of falsehood and selfishness is sometimes too overwhelming, even for me," she tells them as she picks up her bag and leaves through the door without glancing towards the living room, indicating that she never wants to remember this imminent past again. As the sun cast hues of orange and pink across the skyscrapers, Michael and Emily walked hand in hand through the bustling streets. The air crackled with energy, the rhythm of the city pulsating around them like a heartbeat. They had emerged from the storm of deception and betrayal stronger than ever, their love forged in the fires of adversity. With each step they took, the weight of their past seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. The city, with its towering buildings and bustling crowds, seemed to embrace them, offering endless opportunities and adventures. They wandered through Central Park, the leaves rustling beneath their feet as they strolled hand in hand, lost in conversation and laughter. For Michael, the park held a special significance. It was here, amidst the tranquil beauty of nature, that he had first confessed his true feelings for Emily, setting into motion a chain of events that had changed their lives forever. As they reached a secluded bench overlooking the shimmering waters of the lake, Michael turned to Emily, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "I never imagined I could find happiness like this," he said, his voice soft with emotion. "But with you, everything feels possible." Emily smiled, her eyes sparkling with tears of joy. "I feel the same way," she whispered, her hand reaching out to caress his cheek. "You've shown me a love I never knew existed, Michael, and for that I'll be forever grateful." They sat in silence for a moment, savoring the beauty of the moment and the depth of their connection. In the distance, the lights of the city twinkled like stars, a reminder of the countless possibilities that lay ahead. As they made their way back to the bustling streets, Michael and Emily knew that their journey was far from over. But with each other by their side, they felt invincible, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. For in the heart of New York City, amidst the chaos and the noise, they had found something truly extraordinary, a love that was as timeless and enduring as the city itself. And as they walked into the night, hand in hand, they knew that their love would guide them through every twist and turn of their shared adventure.